He said he might be running hot, but he said he was going to be here.
All right. Thank you. Let's call the workshop to order, 5:15. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Nordby's absent. Councilmember Woods.
Here.
Councilmember McKenzie.
Here.
Councilmember Schweer is absent. Mayor Monge.
Here. Thank you very much. Motion to adopt the agenda, please. So moved. So moved. Councilmember McKenzie.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Woods. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. It's all you.
All right, well, we got one topic on the agenda tonight, and it's discussion about the RFP solid waste and recycling collection services. I wanted to put a special thanks out to Ken Roberts, our Community Development Director, and Dan Winnick, our Finance Director, that really organized a lot of this, put all this together this evening for you, but they've also had good help with Chris Jern, Barb Hulsman, and Taylor Lilly. So thanks to all of them and all the work they put into this, and I will turn it over to Dan.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council member. Tonight we're going to discuss, get you up to speed on where we're at with the RFP on the solid waste and recycling collection services. We've taken a little bit of a pause before we interview, shortlist and interview some of the vendors that we've received proposals from, because we really want and value your input, and so we'd like to get that. But before we start, kind of want to say a little good news regarding our solid waste. And a lot of this credit, well, all of the credit goes to our council members and to our city manager. You know, we constantly are hearing that our rates are going up or our property taxes are going up. Our solid waste rates have not gone up since 2020. They have remained the same. Matter of fact, when we went out for an RFP in 2019, we actually reduced our rates into 2020, and we've kept them there all the way through. Kind of a value of doing a financial plan that we've been doing with all of our funds, and you know, whether it's the general fund or enterprise funds, is that we looked at the solid waste. We had fund balance, and even though we've been taking a loss the last 3 years, we still have fund balance in there, which has enabled us not to change the rates at all. Good news, even better, is that these RFPs have come in with very good proposals and very good rates, that there's a heck of a great chance that we will not be having to raise our rates at least for a few years. But part of it's going to be dependent on what you see as needs for our residents in the city. And we're going to kind of tell you what we learned through the RFPs as we went through them. And so kind of want to get you up to speed where we're at, and then it's really to get discussion, to get your input, because this is going to be valuable for us to come up with the questions that we're going to be asking the vendors, and then incorporate those ideas and thoughts into the contract itself that we'll be bringing forth to you later on this year. So the purpose tonight is to update the City Council on the request for proposals, and to seek direction on key elements to the City Council would like to see in that final contract before we do the interviews and negotiate with the negotiate the contract. Now, we've got some key elements. You may have others. Don't, you know, please add other elements that you saw. We just, you know, as going through the RFPs, we saw some different themes that we thought were kind of interesting, and kind of want to feel City Council to find out if the sense is that we should really pursue those, and if so, you know, if there's a cost associated, you know, should we, you know, what would be kind of the limit on the cost component to it, so we have some sort of guidance when we get into the negotiations. So what has been done? Ken Roberts has done the bulk of all of this. He's been the project manager on this project and has done an absolutely excellent job. You've already heard from our city manager, Chris, myself, Barb, and Taylor have all participated. They've been the standing committee as we've worked through this. We work with, and I always get their name wrong, so correct me, Ken. Is it FOTH? F-O-T-H. Is a consultant that's through Ramsey County. The city does not pay for this consultant, Ramsey County does. They have a lot of expertise in developing RFPs for, garbage haulers. And so they've been excellent to work with and very helpful in our process in developing the RFP and the timeline for getting a contract so we can get it back in front of City Council. At the end of last year, City Council adopted a motion approving the draft of the request for proposals. And we then got that out for public advertisement with a deadline of February 13th for submittals. We're very pleased to tell you that we received 7 proposals, which was quite good for this. And again, we did receive, the market is very good at this point in time. We did receive some very good proposals as far as cost is concerned. The committee independently reviewed and scored each one of the 7 proposals on a scale of 1 to 10. The categories were qualifications, economic and price, community values, past performance, and value-added plans. The staff at Foth Consultants tabulated the committee scores, and they also completed a comparison of the base proposals for cost by doing a weighted percentage scoring for each of the 7 proposals. These are the results of those 7 proposals. None of the vendor names are being shown because we're too early in the process. It's not public information at this point in time. It's really to get the input from City Council. So they're labeled A through G, and you can see that there's a weighted percentage. On the bottom there's points, and then there's the weighted percentage. And you can see the top scores in 8.9, followed by a 7.99, 7.44, and so forth, all the way down to 6.31. If we look at the second line, economics and price, you can see the first vendor had points of 9.3, the second had a 10, and the rest of them fall off pretty dramatically in comparison. There is a formula that Foth used to calculate the score for cost, where they take the cost minus the minimum cost of all the costs, and they prorate it over from a 10 being the lowest price, 5 points being the highest price of the proposals. And again, the RFP contained a lot of different pricing for, it's got yard waste, it's got the recycling component, it's got the garbage at different levels, it's got dumpsters and so forth. And so after A and B, you see quite a significant drop off. One of the things that, we kind of would like to have City Council's input on is when we move to the interview stage in the negotiation component to it, and negotiation would be with the one company that we choose after the interviews, but we really feel as a committee that we should only select the top 2 just because of that price component to it. And then when we get into these key elements, those are going to be questions that we would like to be asking the 2 vendors that we select for interviews and find out where they're at for pricing. Some of them have included pricing for some of these different options, some did not. But because this is an RFP, we do have the right to be able to try to negotiate those and incorporate those within the contract. So kind of put you on the spot right away. Are you in agreement that we just interview the top 2 just because of the big fall off? 1, in overall scoring, and 2, pricing?
Yes, I'm for that.
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
I do have a couple of questions.
Sure. Yep.
Now,
No.
okay, time for
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely.
So value-added plan? What is considered value-added plan?
Well, one of the pieces that we had a theme throughout the proposal was like bulk pickup.
Okay.
And
Are
it
those
was-
additional things that,
Yeah,
that are not farther down, but also included in here, the questions for us about bulk pickup,
Yeah,
the app, things
Yep.
like that, those are part of the value-added plan.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and, we were really trying to go, I mean, in my time here at the city, that spring cleanup, the bulk pickup has been something that continuously comes up for dialogue. And my understanding is in the past that there used to be a bulk pickup that was provided, part of the garbage rate itself, and that went away. So, we really wanted to hear, give us some inventive ideas. How do you handle it? What would work, what wouldn't work? And we were kind of in certain ways disappointed that not all of the vendors really provided that value added, and you can see the scores kind of reflect that different component to it. But again, this being an RFP, that if our city council, if you have that desire that we should have a bulk pickup, and we've got a question that, we'll get into more of a dialogue and get your input, that we can bring that up and we can negotiate that component to it. And so that's what the value-added component was that we were trying to get at, one of them. We did learn some other things that companies are offering, which we found very interesting, and so we want to share those too and get your input onto it.
Thank you.
The results of the staff scoring and weighting, kind of just went through it, and again, it shows those two proposals that are the highest. And so really kind of want to make sure that we move forward, and kind of isolate those two. Now, even though we move forward with those two, if something just doesn't work with them, we can always reach back. And that's part of the reason why there's no names at this point in time. And it's really, kind of, at this point, it's not public information until we actually come to city council with a contract, and then we'll give you the information at that point in time. But so the next steps that we have is, that we're gonna select the vendors to interview, and it sounds like we'll do the top two. We're gonna try to schedule those out in the next couple of weeks. Then we're gonna negotiate terms of the contract, including the key elements, part of our discussion tonight. And we're gonna finalize the contract, and then we're gonna bring it to the city council. We're shooting to bring the contract in June. That will allow, if a new vendor is selected, 3 months for that new vendor to be able to be prepared to start on September 1st of this year, because the other contract ends at the end of August. Now getting into kind of the discussion components to it. One of the components that came across, and we had a number of vendors that offered this up. Currently today, the city staff is providing our residents with that customer service. So they're the first call. If there's issues that happen, like somebody missed that a resident missed a pickup, we end up having to contact the vendor. We end up playing that middle role to it, which, many times creates frustrations for our resident that they're waiting for this middle person, we're the middle person, we're waiting for some sort of a response. There were a couple of vendors that said that they would take over the customer service. And so we're really trying to find out what is the city's, city council's desire. Do you want to see, the vendor take over the customer service component to it? We would still retain the billing, and part of the reason for that billing is because, again, we haven't changed the rate since 2020. We don't anticipate that we'll need at this point in time. Again, it'll flush out when we do the final negotiations, and depending on what key elements are selected, but we don't plan on increasing the rate. But we want to be able to have control over that rate, so we're not seeing it raised artificially, and we have no knowledge of it. So we would still do the billing. There would be, language put into the contract to make sure that they're meeting our standards, that there's good communication back, because if they when we get to the bulk pickup, if bulk pickup was done the same way today, they would be contacting the vendor for that pickup, but we would end up having to know what those charges are so we could put it onto the bill and so forth. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to go through. Now, even if they do take over customer service, we're always gonna end up, playing a role into it. You're a resident, the first call you're gonna go to is gonna be to the city when it comes to the utilities, because, you're providing the bill. We would hope that this alleviates some of the confusion for our residents, but it's really to ask the city council, what do you think of that as an option?
Do we know what the volume of calls currently looks like?
We had invited all of the committee to be here. Barb, who is our utility coordinator, kind of the calls that we get, there's usually about 20% of the calls are usually related to some sort of garbage, whether it's a missed call, whether it's a bulk pickup, and so forth. So there are a number of calls that do come in, and then, it doesn't end just there, because then we end up having to send something, via email or calling to the vendor, because they're the ones who have to actually schedule it. We have some guidelines that we've worked out with them, but, and then we need to.
Is it a nuisance for trying to get a hold of the vendor?
No, they're pretty good. They're pretty good response. It's just that there's a significant delay, and then we end up having to reach back out to the residents. And so it's really the inconvenience as far as the resident is concerned. And so this is an option to, at least we believe that this would end up helping that communication with the resident a little bit more and be a little bit more, I guess, seamless, instead of having to be the intermediate step that they're taking.
That's what I was thinking. If they really can't help, all they're doing is a go-between, what does it really help?
Yeah, and, they're very helpful, as far as the bulk pickup, because, we have a pricing list, so they can, get that and do that. But if there's some sort of issue that's transpired, it's back and forth, and we do get some, and I do not blame them, we get frustrated residents because of that delay. I want an answer now, and I don't blame them.
Do they monitor calls? Do they do reports? If somebody calls up and, tells the city, I've been calling and I'm getting no satisfaction, do we have any kind of reporting that we can get for call reporting where we could, see how that call went and see where it went type of thing?
You mean as far as
From them.
From them?
Correct.
Not that I am aware of at this point in time, but those would be the pieces that if they take over customer service, then there would be some certain demands that we would
I don't
put
think
into
our
our
system's
contract.
too old to have that, but I think any kind of customer service, you should have some kind of
Exactly.
reporting and
Yeah.
Recording.
analyticals to see what you're doing.
Exactly. And that would be a part of, and that's why we're trying to get your input. If you're interested in this, then, and we've already had a very good meeting with the committee. We kind of went through this PowerPoint, these key elements, and really it comes down to, it's the details in the contract to make, if this is something that we desire, then how do you make it really work? And then it needs to be reevaluated every 3-6 months until you've got, all the wrinkles ironed out, to make sure that it's seamless. And the city always has the option to pull it back out. And that would be something that we would put, again, language in the contract that would allow us to do so.
Do we have a direct dial number for trash now, or do they just call the 2400? Is there a number out there, 2480 or something like
I
that?
think there's a separate number that,
So we can take that and keep that number and just forward it to them, so we can keep control of the number then, probably?
that or have them directly, we just publish that you call
Yeah.
directly to
I'd like to
whoever
see
the
it stay
vendor
with
is.
our number if we can, just in case things change down the line type of thing, if we can do some kind of a forwarding where, and if it doesn't work out, we're not sending out, hey, that didn't go well, guy, we're going back to something else.
Sure, that,
So if we can keep that number and just direct it, I think at least we have control over that then if something doesn't go correctly.
okay.
My thought is because we're in control of the bill, I like it coming to the city. the last thing I want is, let's say they decide on bulk pickup costing $5 an item or something. If bill mix up or things go awry, so if the guest calls the company and then there's a miscommunication with the company and us, and now someone's getting charged for something that they didn't ask for, I can see that as a potential issue. So depending on the call volume and the amount of hours you think it's saving, I'm not super on board or super excited about outsourcing that.
Well, and I guess I would agree with Jason a bit, because not to jump ahead, but if, the next thing on the agenda or the next item to discuss is the app, a vendor-provided app. If that is an option, I could see that definitely offsetting some of those calls for the more technologically inclined people, residents of the city, being able to self-serve them, provide their own self-service. I have a question, I can do it in the app. I want to reschedule, I can do it in the app, things like that. And then we're really truly just dealing with the billing issues for those people. So I guess, I think it makes sense to keep us in the loop, so.
So I'm hearing from two that you would like to keep the customer service still with the city?
I would, yes.
Without hearing the rest of the presentation, right now, that's the way I'm leaning.
No, that's good. This is good input. Well,
My
we'll,
big thing is to make sure that we can do something instead of just them getting hounded and then we're hounding. I don't know how the call response is. If the call response is, when they do it, they call back right away, or if it's hours and they're calling up the city and saying, or calling up the resident and saying, I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything back yet, what kind of position, as far as staff too. Is it something they can really do, that type of thing. So if we can, if we had a better understanding with, the call volume is pretty, not much, and it's, they can get taken care of fairly quickly. But it's, but I would still, even if we did something, I'd still like to keep control, because if something doesn't go right, I don't want to have to republish numbers, because people take that and they put it in spots, and then all of a sudden they're dialing that number. So that'd be the concern I would have if we did something that was not with us.
no, very good points that are being made, and whether customer service stays with us or whether it goes to a vendor, there's always a potential of issues. And that's where, it really is, how do you work through all of those components that are with there? It's just that, again, I think virtually every single one of the vendors that in their proposals offered up customer service. They all have call centers.
From
And
$3 to $1 per month resident, is that what I'm looking at?
and these are just my throwing something out there just to kind of gauge,
These aren't things proposed by
No.
the vendors.
This
These are
is- this
things
is to
that
kinda give
We
us-
would throw out and say, hey, we would like to do this, and this is
right.
the price that we would propose.
That we would be willing to pay for that type of a service and not go over it. And so to me, underneath this, we did have a number of vendors that would do it for free. There was no additional charge to it. From this dialogue, we're not seeing a huge benefit, and I'll relate it back to a financial, or a cost savings to us, so why would I pay for something? Would be the piece to it. So to me, I would look at it, and it would be my recommendation that if we were to entertain that customer service with the vendor, and that would be questions that we would ask in the interview, how would it work? And to be able to come back to the city council if we decided to have it in there, and you can scratch something off of the contract and say, no, we're decided not to do that, but it would be in there for, my recommendation, it would be in there for free. We would not pay something to have them do that.
And I would also say if Barb or whoever were able to provide some examples of, these are the types of calls that we get, this is about how many calls we get, things like that. Because I could foresee, even if we had them take care of it, had, the vendor take care of it, somebody's still gonna call the city.
Absolutely.
Somebody's gonna get frustrated if we just say, oh, I'm sorry, you need to call the vendor for that. And then, we're still
Absolutely.
going to facilitate that communication, and so we're still in the loop regardless whether we're
Absolutely.
supposed to be or not.
I remember when I
Absolutely.
did work
That's
for BFI, you know, back in the day when they were our garbage hauler in North St. Paul, we would talk to them directly, because I used to go over there and take care of their call center. That's what I did, was, you know, call center work. So they would just call in directly to there for your stuff. I don't know when it switched to hitting here, but that was another option.
Okay.
Now, our system that we have now for phone system, we can't get any reporting or anything out of it as far as if we need to do stuff, reporting, recording, anything like that?
I think we get call volume through the
basic
metro.
stuff.
Yeah, basic stuff, yeah. One of the other things, not all vendors proposed this, was to provide an app that customers could access with information about pricing, schedule changes, delays in pickup options, vacation holds, and et cetera. And that's where, you know, really our question is city council, do you see that as something that's desirable for our residents? And if so, would there be a cost associated that you would be willing to pay?
So where your can text you on Monday night and say, hey, dummy, put me out in the curb, you forgot.
You got it.
There you go.
Well, and I could see, I tend to be technologically inclined, and so I could see this being super valuable for me. I know I've got a vacation coming up. I'm gonna put a hold on, you know, just like I do with my mail. I would put a hold on my, you know, my garbage pickup. Don't worry about picking up mine, because I'm not gonna be there. You know, granted, my cans wouldn't be out either, but,
Holidays,
And-
you know, remember, there's
Right.
no pickup, or it's a day late.
yep,
How many calls they get for that?
yep. And then, if we do the bulk pickup, being able to schedule that bulk pickup in the app, you know, this is what I've got, this is when I want it picked up. Super easy for me. So I would say yes, I would like this option, but that's just me.
And for me, where I fall is, on the list you provided, I would entertain it up to the 50 cent per resident per month. That's kind of the value I place on an app, as long as it's 24 hours and, you know, looks like a decent app, not a,
Now, part of this as we go into interviewing, and I can't remember off the top, I don't know if this is something that both of those vendors provide. But what we would do is we would say in the contract, in other words, it wouldn't be a deal breaker, but in the contract, it would say that you have to be moving towards this, and we would give them some sort of a timeline.
Yep.
You know, and again, just like Councilmember Nordby said, that we would end up having to basically accept or approve whatever app that they end up coming with, that it's making sure that it's meeting, you know, what we perceive as the needs for the residents, part to it, but. Okay, any other comments on the app? 50 cents per resident per month,
Yeah, 25, 50, yeah, that'd be something that's, yeah.
be helpful.
You know,
And then another interesting component that, you know, as we're going through the RFPs, was there were a number of vendors that talked about truck technology, you know, of having, you know, cameras showing the driver and the load, and GPS, so you knew where the truck was at all times, that a resident could access, and that would end up then going through that app in some way, that there'd be a map, and that they would end up seeing that. And as our city manager, when we kind of went through all of this stuff, you know, that we'd like to be able to see that map and see the route, so they know where they're at in that route component to it. Again, we look at this again as, you know, because it was overarching of all of the vendors, but it was like, it struck us as, this isn't a bad idea, that, you know, we can see some value to it. Would not be a deal breaker if somebody didn't have it today, but again, they have to be moving towards that component to it. And again, it would be something that whether we're providing the customer service or they are, it's something that helps our residents with that customer service component to it. So is this something that, that would be desired by city council, and
No for me.
no for you? No?
I would see this as less valuable than the app necessarily.
Okay.
I think it's more of it would be more beneficial to the provider from the standpoint of knowing where their trucks are, knowing if their truck gets in an accident, having that camera footage of what happened and things like that for accountability. But for the residents, I don't see this as big a deal.
Okay.
Number one of the residents would do, he'd look on that, drive up and find that driver and say, I need you to come over and pick up my garbage right now. That driver's got his other stuff to pick up, then you're gonna have a war.
One thing I could see is if I forgot to put the can out and I could look up, and if it was free, I wouldn't pay anything for it. Go, ooh, he's still down the block. I got time to go throw it out.
It's for us procrastinators
That'd be
that,
the only
yeah.
one,
Yeah, I mean, I'm, if it's free, sure, but I would have a hard time attaching a fee to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then bulky pickup. Bulky pickups would be, so what we're thinking is the bulky pickups would be picked up at residences on a regular basis that is at no additional charge to the resident outside of a monthly charge. And then we kind of look at it in two different components, the frequency of it and then the cost per resident. And first of all, is that something that's kind of some sort of interest for, city council to look at?
For me, yes, very, very much so.
Very much so.
I do like it, but I sure hated the way it was abused when we had it. So I don't know how, we have to have a lot of, be able to put some stipulations on it because people were every week pile crap everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's where, we could set the number of items
Yep.
that are there. And again, is that frequency, it could be 2 items per month. We could, have it 2 per quarter, 2 per semi-annual, annual, or it could be 4, 6, but we would set some parameters on there. And part of that is because they're gonna have to provide at least some sort of pricing that would be associated with doing that.
My question is, people put stuff out, they're gonna come through at night, your scrappers are gonna take it, that stuff's not there, that guy's gonna get charged for it not being picked up, but he's still getting charged.
Well, see, in this way, there would be a uniform charge is what we're talking for, all residents. And we would be looking at, and I'll flip to the next, again, we're not looking at it being a very high cost component to it that they would have to offer. Now, we have had a vendor that part of their proposal, there were 2 vendors that addressed this. One vendor had proposed 2 items per year at no cost. One proposed 2 items per month at, I think, 72 cents per resident. So what we're looking at is not a high cost component to it, but it's really to kind of get city councils, and then we would go in, and try to negotiate and find what the vendor can do, what the cost, but we want to kind of have a parameter of what that ceiling is. We will not go above that.
Well, this will then cancel our yearly pickup then that we do for how would that go?
That's definitely something that's to me a different issue, and the city council would have to have that as a discussion onto it.
Well, it's gonna have to be an
But it-
issue that we're gonna have to do, because we're not gonna have both, I don't think. It'd be, it's a lot of work and effort if we're gonna be doing it on a monthly basis or something.
They still did it even back then when they had the bulk pickup that the city handled it, and there was no restrictions on it, which was part of the problem. But then we also did do a spring cleanup. Once upon a time, we did a spring and a fall cleanup, so.
And if I may, the idea with this also would the residents would still have the option if they had a special need. They got 6 items this week because they did a clean out. They could still call in to either the city or the hauler and arrange that special pickup and pay extra for that. This would be a built-in charge in everybody's bill, whether they use it or not.
And more than likely, you would get some sort of a sticker. You would be getting, let's say you say, 2 per quarter. You'd get 2 stickers that would be mailed out to you, and you would, be able to utilize them. You'd stick them on whatever's out there so that the hauler knows what's gonna.
When we had bulk before, was it a set price?
Yeah, it was like $2.35 a bill is what I remember.
A month or something, yeah.
And they stopped it because of abuse? Was that?
It was going to raise, if I remember right, it was gonna go from like $2.35 per month bill to, I wanna say like $5.80 or something. And they just felt that was too big of an increase.
But was that prior to the former vendor to the new one we have now? Was there a discrepancy in there? Because the newer one did not have bulky pickup at that time. Because I know our other one did.
I'm just know
Yeah, no, I
what,
really, yeah,
when it was included in my monthly bill.
yeah,
It said it on the side, and I wanna say it was $2 and change.
yeah.
$2.30 is what I remember. And then the city sent out a survey asking what they wanted to do, because the current vendor at the time, 5 and change is what's remembering in my head, and it was decided that they weren't going to go for it because they felt that was too much of a burden on the residents, and then they went to a cost per item at that time.
And I think from a resident's perspective, there were those that did not take advantage, that didn't need it. I don't want to say take advantage of it, but those that did not use it, and therefore were upset that they had to pay for a service that they were not
That's kind of, I
using.
remember from when
So,
I was hearing from.
So I think, I don't know if we even pursued it when we went with our current vendor. If we just said, you know what, we're not gonna do it, we're gonna try this other thing, and, I think moving back to bulky pickup makes sense. I think keeping it on the low end, 2 items per quarter, 1 item per month, something like that, I think makes sense in my mind. One, from a number of items that a general household can come up with in the course of a month or things like that. And 2, in keeping that cost increase minimal, so that even if there is an increase for people who don't take advantage of it, it's not an overly burdensome charge.
And you said you can add more if you need to. Ken, isn't that what you said?
Yes, if you had, yes, you could always call and schedule, just like now.
And one of the reasons why I'm somewhat passionate about this and glad we're pursuing this, and this is anecdotal evidence, but I walk my dog a lot, and to me, I notice the amount of junk in people's yards, in my opinion, has significantly gone up since the bulky pickup went away. You walk through the side streets, you walk through, the amount of stuff that I know people, if they didn't have to pay for it, would put out in front, just to help the city be a little bit nicer and cleaner. But again, minimal cost, not, if you have, 10 or 20 items, yeah, you're gonna pay for that many. But just so I guess, to me, we're all gonna answer this individually, but I kind of agree with what Troy, I'm anywhere from like 1 item per month or to 6 or 8 annually per household at the most.
One quick thing, I was wondering too, is it, if they do it quarterly, is it cheaper than monthly? As far as gas, what, is there any different in charges that, because they have to get trucks out more? If they say, quarterly, if you can have three items quarterly?
These are all things that will get negotiated.
That's one thing as far as, is that cheaper if we just, instead of doing it monthly, just say quarterly or type of thing?
And we can come up with your top 4 of what you'd like to get quotes on and see what comes back.
Yeah, that, the travel,
Yep.
somebody here and there type of thing, if you can do it, in sections or in quarters where it's not, maybe that will help too on pricing.
Absolutely, and I would imagine any vendor would follow the same routes that they have. So you've got the 4 days a week that they're providing, trash. They would probably follow that same type of a schedule with the bulky pickup. Yeah, if you can push it off instead of having it every single month, if you did it on a quarterly basis, and you could move it up to, 3 items on the quarterly basis, or 4 items on a quarterly basis. It's really, we'll go back to, you know, looking at the frequency. You know, do we have kind of a consensus that we want the number of items and then the frequency, month per quarter, semi-annual, annual? It could be every 2 weeks, or every 2 months. Those are up to you. Somebody want to start kind of throwing out different options and thoughts onto that?
You wanna cut this off in December, so there's no bulky pickup through the winter time then? Because sometimes this stuff, you guys are gonna be plowing snow out in the winter time. You don't want this stuff laying out there.
That's definitely a thought that, you know, that we've talked about, Ken and I, and then we shared with the committee. I believe that we probably would want to do that, but then others say, you know, you still have the bulky pickup during those time periods. But again, that's really leaving to city council. There's, you know, there's some positives to cutting it off for at least, you know, maybe 3 months.
Till
Yeah.
March,
Yeah.
April.
I mean, I'll start, we can just go down the road. I mean, to me, I would want to see at least 4 items per year, preferably more, but that would be the minimum. And if it's more than that, I would be willing to go up to probably $1 per month per resident, but that would be my absolute max. But it's all gonna depend on how many items they get, you know, and how often it is. But that's where I sit.
Okay, very good.
I would say, you know, let's say 6 to 12 items per month, but if we can keep it,
Per month?
or sorry, 6 to 12 items per year.
You're generous.
Sorry. But if we can keep it, you know, more towards the 50 cent per resident, I think that's going to be more accepted among the residents. You know, obviously, the cheaper it is, the better, but, you know.
I'm stuck between quarterly and semi-annually. That's where my thought is. Monthly, I think, is too much.
I think a quarterly for me would be better at like the 50-cent rate, yeah. More realistic. And if
One
they,
quarter
if
will be
they,
done then, as far as, not during the winter?
yeah, basically.
Or you do it at the end of, well, yeah, you're right.
So maybe do 4 items, 3 quarters?
Yeah.
And don't do that January, February, March.
Because you don't want anything laying out on the street. Because we have also parking regs out there too in the winter.
One thing for the council too, we are, fingers crossed, if we're fortunate enough, the way the rates came in, we may, up to 50 cents, maybe more, maybe a little more, would be able to include that in the contract and not have to raise our rates. That's our hope, based on what we've seen so far. Again, negotiations haven't started yet, but what we've seen, they're very, very favorable for the city and the residents.
Do you have a good pencil sharpener? Because we like our pencil sharpened really tight.
That's Dan's department, he's the money guy.
Sharpen that pencil.
Well, if any of the 7 vendors are watching this or watching it on a replay, you know, to get this contract, they're gonna have to sharpen their pencils and give the city stuff. There's a lot of competition that is out there. And, you know, again, we had a vendor that gave a proposal of 2 items per month, 72 cents. So if you do 4 items for 3 quarters at 50 cents, you're probably somewhere in that ballpark, and that they should be somewhere in there. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, I don't think we're gonna give a lot of ground up here on some of these negotiations, especially when we get the city council's backing on that, and that's the purpose of getting your ideas ahead of time, so we have a better stance.
And just to throw one thing out there, I don't know where everyone else is. For me, car tires are not a deal breaker, if they accept them or don't, because I know some people are, so.
Yeah.
For me, the bulky item does not, if it does, great, but if it doesn't, that wouldn't be a.
And I would imagine that there'll be, you know, and we haven't seen, yeah, there'll be items that are restricted, and yep, and understandably so. That's kind of how the environmental components to it, yep.
Yeah, and we have the Ramsey County Environmental Center that takes a lot
Absolutely.
of those things anyway.
Yep.
So we can, there's options there.
Yes.
About mattresses, have to be an elimination too.
And again, that'll be
Healthy.
something, that'll be part of that whole negotiations is where are they at with certain things? And hopefully, and again, hopefully vendors do check this out and find out. It certainly would be a wise move that they would offer at least something up, whether we'll do mattresses, but it's only twice a year. Or some other component. And that's really what we're hoping, again, I think it was Councilmember Woods that you had talked about, what was that value added? This is what we were hoping for our vendors to come up with some different ideas of how they could do us and share some pricing with us. But we didn't get as many ideas as we wanted to, but that's for us now through this discussion to go back and kind of hammer, and we would like to see these different things. And I think they would benefit our residents greatly, so.
Did they make any mention to, I think most everything can be picked up by their regular trucks. I think they run a separate truck if they're doing appliances. If that was any more for like a appliance as opposed to a regular item, they can just pick up the truck.
Again, there wasn't really great detail. The one vendor, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the one vendor who was gonna do 2 items per month would run a whole separate truck. Pretty much, yeah. And go through and do that, but.
For all the vendors that you talk to, are they all willing to participate in the green bag?
Yes, that was, yes,
Yep.
that was,
Yes, that was a requirement.
that was a requirement in the RFP, yep.
And I would assume all the vendors would continue on yard waste and recycling and everything like that.
Oh, no. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Again, all requirements, and there's pricing that was supplied.
Weekly pickup, right, correctly?
Well, for you, it could be longer
Oh, yeah. Well, I just pile on the curb, that's,
and more expensive.
well, when the sweeper goes by, he'll pick it up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's strange, the recycling seems to be more full than the trash can nowadays.
Yes.
And they're a little smaller too, unfortunately, the
Yes.
recycling can, so.
No, the RFP included all of the other services that the city's currently receiving, and that's where kind of the added value was trying to give us something different. And we did talk in the RFP about the bulky pickup as kind of being, we use the term issue for the city, but something that we really wanted them to focus on.
Are there any other things that we should be aware of that is important to the council to include in the contract besides what I call the regular stuff?
Were there discussions, back to what the mayor had mentioned earlier, were there discussions about what they see other cities doing in terms of bulky pickup versus the periodic, whether it's monthly or quarterly, versus the annual, like what we're doing now? What do they see other cities doing? Is there a general consensus of what's?
Think
It was all over the board.
yeah.
A
But
lot of cities are doing the cleanup days still,
Okay,
and as far as bulky pickup, it was all over.
okay,
And the consultants even said there's no magic bullet. It's kind of a combo of, people have too much stuff.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it.
And for me, just for noise, where I sit, I would do 50 cents a month if the trucks were electric, so you didn't have the motor noise that early in the morning. I don't know if that's any options in any, but that's just where I sit.
you would give an additional 50 cents if they were
Some of them are
electric?
run on propane though.
Yeah, but those are loud, just like a regular motor, in my mind.
They have better luck than the fire trucks do that were electric. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any garbage truck. I never heard of one yet. Is there electric garbage trucks?
They were just building a station in St. Paul for them, I believe. But like, I don't know if any of them had that option.
I mean, it's definitely something that we can ask, and
I wouldn't pay any extra for that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's gonna be different on there.
there's considerations with that as well. Once upon a time, we just had a demo of a truck that, it added, 7,500 pounds to the weight of the vehicle, and like this time of year is pretty critical for the weights on what they run on the streets that sometimes you don't think about that stuff, but and the additional cost was tremendous as well.
I'm just curious, what do the trucks weigh when they're fully loaded after a day of recycling pick up either truck? What do they weigh when they leave town? I'd like to find out what their actual weight is. Because they're undergrowth when they come in, but they've got to be pretty close to overgrowth over 4 tons per axle.
Just follow the ruts.
I can't think of anything else. Was asking people what they thought, and everybody seems to be happy with our garbage service the way it is now. Nobody's saying that we got issues as far as, missed pickups or anything like that. I was asking people that I ran into just to see if they had any thoughts, and
I think there were some places that actually looked at requirements of single axle over double axle due to the weights, but I don't know if that was brought up or not, but I've heard of it anyway.
I've never ridden in a single axle. Oh, they're scary. They're not very comfortable.
Don't they have air ride seats?
Yeah, but you're still going like this.
I was really happy somebody picks up garbage. I think that's the best thing ever.
I'll reiterate what Dan, I think, said earlier, if not tonight, a previous night. The value of putting this out for the RFP, we got 7 proposals. We did get a few ideas, but we did get very competitive rates, and those top 2 are very competitive. And we're hopeful, again, that we'll be able to hold the rates for the next 5 years of the contract at a very affordable.
Let's not go that far. But.
Well, we're hoping. It will be a 5-year contract. Now, there will be probably some inflation raises in there, but overall. And if we can provide some extra services, like with the bulky pickup on some curbside versus people having to haul it, I think that will be a win-win for the residents and the city.
Yeah, you just don't realize when you have kids at home, the thing was packed to the gills, and now if I have 2 bags in there, by the time I roll it out, that's a lot. So it's really strange of, how much less there is now when you get an empty nest.
I experience the same thing when the wife goes out of town for a while. I don't even need to put it out.
That's right.
But I'm going to put it in my own words, kind of what Ken had said. 2 years I've had the privilege of going to the council retreat. And one of the themes that has been there for 2 years is for staff to be looking at contracts and to come out and try to get better pricing. This is a good example of, it works. And we're saving not just the city, but we're saving our residents. And this is a very good story. Our city manager, Brian, keeps telling us, let's get moving. We did have the right to do another 2-year extension with our current contractor, and Brian pushed and said, no, we need to get out there and find out where it is. Well, we hit the market at a good time. 7 proposals. We got some fantastic rates that are there. That's going to allow us some flexibility to potentially add some additional services, and our residents won't see an increase in this, at least for the first couple of years. If not, all 5, we'll be shooting for that. But yeah, so I mean, it is a huge value to be able to have those conversations with city council and to be able to get where you're at, because that's very meaningful for staff and it allows us to be able to then carry out your mission. So
Greatly appreciate the work you've done.
2 of the things that I guess I'm looking, our current hauler has been very gracious on coming out on the cleanup day to help its public works. That's huge. And another comment I had about our current hauler, I watched the driver get out of his truck one day, went down the alley on 17th and Helen, He noticed a set of barrels were down that forgot to get pulled out. He went down and pulled them out and dumped them for the guy. Now, how many drivers from other companies would do that?
You know, and that's the thing is I don't know.
That's
Except for
That's what I see.
except for the annual cleanup, virtually all of them talked about that they provide, you know, staffing for the cleanup. So that one I think is pretty equal across any vendor. When it comes to an individual who's a driver, who knows, company A, B, C, D, they may have a fantastic employee who would end up doing that. And nothing against our current vendor, but this is a process. And at the end of the day, we need to be able to provide good service at a very good price that's enhancing our residents', you know, way of life, so. Any other questions, thoughts?
I think we did a real good job, and thank you for the work and investigating. I think, go to the two like we discussed, and
So we'll go and set up interviews, we'll have interviews, try to negotiate a contract, and then we're planning on, at least by hopefully the second meeting in June, no later than the first meeting in July, that we would have a contract, you know, to bring forth. Again, there can be some changes in that contract, but hopefully we've ironed out pretty much everything. And again, it'll be in line with what this discussion was today, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the hard work.
Yeah, thank you for all your work, Ken and Dan and the rest of your team.
Again, I give Ken a heck of a lot of credit because he's keeping us on task and he's done an absolutely wonderful job. So thanks, Ken.
All right. Anything else on this subject? If not, we're going to adjourn until 6:30. Look at us, all this time. So much room, so much
All
time.
right.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
So moved. Councilmember Woods.
Second.
Councilmember McKenzie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you in 18 minutes. Thank you, everyone.